I made my husband clean up after his insufferable sister's family and she said that I was meant to clean it up. So I threw her and her family out. My sister-in-law and her husband are not my favorite people in the world. Recently they have been couch surfing as they lost their home. They emotionally manipulated my husband to let them in my house. I agreed to it on the condition that she and her husband as well as their children keep the place clean, because in the past the only place they are messy in is my home. They are not like this to other houses. For example, if they are throwing something into the kitchen bin, they will throw it in the general direction of it and not in the actual bin. It's extra gross when it's food stuff that dries up and stinks out the place. Similar things happened in the past where she would leave her sanitary towels on top of the bin lid in the bathroom instead of in the bin. Before they moved in, I made the younger brother and my parents-in-law's witnesses to them agreeing to keeping my house as clean as it is and to chip in with chores. If they broke the rules they would be out immediately. She fussed and denied past wrongdoings but said, "As you wish, Your Highness," sarcastically. The first 5 days were smooth sailing. This morning I found a sanitary towel on top of the bin and not even wrapped properly. That is not all. Her daughter is staying in my daughter's room and she made a mess of the shampoo and conditioner in her bathroom and had left a tampon on the side of the sink, forgetting it from last night. Her husband leaves early for work and the kitchen was a mess when I finally got downstairs. I have a curious toddler and I don't want him to pick up a bloodied sanitary towel. I knocked on the guest room and told her to pack her poop and get out. She looked angry and tried to play innocent. She said it was only some blood and to chuck it in the bin if it bothered me so much. I told her no and picked up her suitcase, throwing their stuff in it. At first she wouldn't leave the house, saying she was going to wait for her brother as she doesn't take orders from me, but I told her, "This house belongs to me too." I dropped her and her youngest ones off at my in-laws. A few hours ago her husband came back from work and when I wouldn't let him and he made a scene. He went to my in-laws, but they don't want them there due to father-in-law illness. When my husband returned from work, my in-laws turned up in our driveway with her and her family within 20 minutes. They are still standing outside and squabbling about being let in. I refused to open the door and told my husband if he backs down he isn't welcome in our home either. They are currently at my in-laws, but they made a promise to return to discuss the matter tomorrow as everyone will be home from work and that way we could all find a workable solution. When my husband got inside I told him that I would not have them in my house. I told him that he could clean up after them, which he did. After cleaning up he asked me why I made him do that. I told him I was just as grossed out over other people's bodily fluids as he was, and unlike him I wasn't biologically related to them. So if he found it unsavory, imagine how I felt in the past cleaning up after them. He promised to buy a new bin and bleach the sink 3 times. Our strategy for tomorrow is that under no circumstances are they coming to live with us. Update. We went early to get it over and done with. My in-laws started with the guilt trip first. They mentioned that they would take them in until they found a place, but due to father-in-law diabetes it wouldn't be good for his health. I told them to tell their daughter to parent her children so they wouldn't run around amok like monkeys. That way they could stay with them as they have spare bedrooms. That didn't land well with sister-in-law. She went on a tirade of how I have always been jealous of her and that I was trying to drive a wedge between her and her brother. I told her she didn't like her own life, so me being jealous of her and her life was a stretch that required suspension of reality. She asked my husband if he was okay with me telling him what to do with his family as he always stays out of my family's business. She told him to lay down the law and tell me that sister and her family would stay as long as it took them to find a new place to stay. My husband was having none of that. He told her that the house was mine just as much his and it was a 2 yes and 1 no deal. Just because I was stay at home now didn't mean that I didn't contribute to buying the house when I was working. They told me to suck it up and act like family. I told them I wasn't there to argue about her cleanliness as I saw what I saw and her brother was witness to it and had to clean it up. He confirmed that he did and that I wasn't making it up. My sister-in-law slipped up and said, "Why did you clean it up?" to her brother, because according to her, I was meant to clean it up. Either she is the dumbest beach alive to admit it or she knows she has the whole family in her pocket. Either way I made it clear she wasn't going to stay with me and because she got along much better with everyone else in the family they would figure out something around their own lives. My husband told his niece that she was old enough to clean up the remaining mess, but she said no. Her father jumped in and said, "She is just your niece, she's my daughter. Don't you dare tell her what to do." It got heated between them so they both had to walk it off. I told her and her husband that the only reason me and my husband were there was to get money back for the bin we had to throw out due to her sprinkling biohazards around the house. She laughed in my face and said it would never happen. I said fine. I hope you realize that when I threw you out I didn't pack all your belongings. I still had her daughter's Switch, her husband's and her 2 younger ones' tablets and some of her jewelry, and a few other bit and pieces as it all happened so quickly that day. It would all be sold to recuperate my cost. We left, but she was yelling loudly about what she would do to me if I dared to sell anything. My husband has my back and he said go ahead and sell whatever you need to. Later on they kept texting my husband to do them one last favor by putting up with her for a few months until she got back on her feet. I told him that no matter what I wouldn't agree to let her slobby husband and her horde of children back in. They texted me too, guilting me about his niece's education. With no place to stay close to her school she might have to start at another school if they get a rental which isn't in the school zone. I texted back tough luck and blocked them.